Hello, my name is Hakon, and welcome back to my channel, all you fabulous fighting fantasy aficionados, for another playthrough video as I go into the Portal of Evil, or possibly look for the Portal of Evil so I can destroy it. I'm just guessing wildly now because this is a book about which I know absolutely diddly squat. But that is interesting too because I don't know what I'm getting into. I don't know what it'll be like, and it's like that box of chocolates thing from Forrest Gump, I suppose. You don't know what you're going to get. So that's what I'm doing today. In other news, this may not be too relevant for you who are only interested in my fighting fantasy content. There is more perks. There are more perks now on Patreon than there used to be. So what I have added, I've decided to add some more things to my Patreon. So for people who are enthusiast members and above, that is the £5 and above tier, you will have access to all my poetry collections. You will have access to something I call the Zoya book, which probably there's very little crossover about that, but that's anything to do with the Empress Zoya synthesizer pedal, where I will put my patch sheets and I will do write-ups on different things to do with how to use it, my own experiences with it, and things I've learned that I wouldn't mind teaching others about it. And also, and this will take a little while, all my published music will also be available to patrons. So anything that is on Bandcamp will eventually be available on Patreon. You can still, of course, if you want to support my music, I don't mind if you want to buy it on Bandcamp, but of course you can also get it on Patreon if you want to get it on a budget, as it were. So at the moment, that is not a very big thing because I'm also in the middle of reorganizing my music. So for any of you who have been to my Bandcamp, you will know that it's basically just singles. So there's single tracks released one at a time as and when I made them. But I've decided to organize them slightly differently, and that is because of how the current organization, or lack thereof, I should say, doesn't make it easy to find my tracks that are the same style, genre, sounds, anything sort of thematically or sonically linked together. So I've decided to make them into albums. So far I've got one album that is piano music, which was about right for one album, actually, in terms of length. I think it's about 40 minutes. And then I have one album which is the music that is primarily musique concrète. So that is the music that uses recorded sounds as musical elements, rather, or primarily, I would say, because not exclusively, rather than sounds that are created from musical instruments, even if those are synthesizers and things like that. So musique concrète, nice French music movement. Of course, in the original musique concrète, what they would do they would actually do these tiny little tape loops of sounds that were recorded and use those as your sound source that then is modified and mangled and filtered and whatever else you will do with it. So it's like you're using a recorded sound instead of an oscillator in synthesizer terms to create your bass sound. That's not usually what I do, but yeah. Anyway, at the moment, of course, nothing fighting fantasy related. I'm not sure what that would be. That would have to be exclusive videos, if anything, and I can't really see why I should do that. I don't know if there's going to be something. Maybe I'll scan all my maps Anyway, I am spending a lot of time now doing something else but playing, which I know some of you like, and others you might feel inclined to skip this bit. I will move my view down to my desk, and hopefully I'll be in focus today. It looks okay, and actually I think that is a good focus. So it stops about there, starts waning off. Yeah. It's hard to get just the right focus for both the map and for the book, and that is of course now that I've got a new camera, which is a webcam, but of course I can't adjust it manually on the camera itself, the focus. I have to adjust it in the recording or streaming app or the webcam's own app, and it's hard to get it just right because it's a large sensor webcam, which of course has the upside of the image quality being really good, and I'm sure you agree it is good. Not as good as the camera I used to use for the better part of the last 10 years, but which of course eventually broke. Anyway, right, so let's get started and see what is going on here. So this is so the previous book was written by Ian Livingstone himself. This one is written by Peter Darville Evans, and I don't know that name at all. Is this his only book? It might be. And illustrated by Alan Langford, which is a name I do recognize. So I presume maybe he's illustrated something else too. I'm not sure. This is actually in, oh my, this is practically mint condition, this one. I don't have that many mint condition fighting fantasy books, but this looks like it might be one of them. And it's the first edition. Okay, that's fine. I'll be careful with it because somebody might want to take it over after me, and they might be very particular about condition. So let's see, the usual stuff. I'm going to, well, we got a map in the beginning, which I always like. Swistraum, Fastham, Neuberg, Forest Ranch, Mlubs Desert, Lake Mlubs. I don't know this area at all. It looks completely new to me. Let's just see what it says here. And should I move my focus up just a little bit? I think because I have a tendency sometimes to lift the book off the page, and let's see. It's a bit tricky with this focus thing, but I'll see what I can do. So if I hold the book, as I'm often doing, like that, and then I shall move the focus in this direction, because now the map is going to be a little bit fuzzy. I suppose it is more important for the book to be in focus rather than the map, I'm guessing. See, I think that should still be okay. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there and see how we get on. Yeah, okay. Shunned by humankind since time began, the hills and valleys between the cloud-high mountains and Lake Mlubs have begun to echo with human voices and the rhythmic sound of pickaxes. With the lure of riches beyond belief, gold fever has hit this inhospitable place. But then one shaft is dug too deep into the hillside, and an ancient source of evil is unleashed and used. The consequences are terrifying, as strange prehistoric creatures roam the woods and miners and their families start to disappear. Only a brave and resourceful adventurer can destroy this ancient evil before it is too late. So basically, again, you're trying to save the world. Yeah. Right. Character, let's see. At the moment, you are down on your luck, you have no money, and your backpack contains provisions for only 2 meals. So that is less than usual. As usual, of course, I'm not going to bother too much about the meals. The gold is something I do treat with a bit more sanctity, because if at any point in a book where I have something that requires gold and I do not have enough gold for it, I do like to be in a position where I can say that I would have had enough gold, at least if I didn't buy such and such that I never needed. At least I need to be sure that I would have had enough gold on the same path that I have taken to get to that point, because otherwise that's what feels like cheating to me. A bit like having information that you're not supposed to, kind of thing. Skill, stamina, luck are the usual ones. I'm going to ignore those, as I have done lately. Combat looks like it's standard. Luck in combat looks standard. Let's see, getting started. It says here, the forests that cover the hills between Kleinkastel and the Cloud High Mountains are extensive and are populated by dangerous denizens. You are very unlikely to succeed in your mission at the first attempt. It says, it is recommended that you make notes and draw a map as you explore. There is a way to succeed that involves little risk, even if you start with low initial scores. There are many more routes that lead to failure and unpleasant fates. Start by reading the background section, etc., etc. Do not read paragraphs you have not been led to. This amounts to cheating and will lessen your enjoyment. Well, I don't know. I don't think the writer of the book should. Well, should they tell you? I think if I ever finish my gamebook project, which has been on the back burner, or even not on the burner at all for a while, I think I will write in my introduction that it's important to play it in whatever way gives you the most enjoyment, but also, of course, I suppose I'll deliver my usual reasoning why it is okay to use finger bookmarks, but why it is not okay to pretend to have items or code words or whatever it is that you have not received during that particular playthrough. Adventure sheet, okay. Far to the east, let's go with the background now. Far to the east of the great port of Keltha, a line of snow-capped peaks divides the fertile lands from the deserts and wastes that make up the interior of the continent of Ku. To the humans who have settled along the streams that run from the northern half of the range, the peaks are known as the Cloud High Mountains. Halfway down the range, a spur extending to the west marks the southward limit of human habitation, or rather it did, until recently. From the southern half of the range, streams rush through narrow valleys between hills that are covered with impenetrable woodlands and drain into an inland sea. The forest is home to wild beasts and to goblins, whose name for the huge lake is Mlubs. I was wondering about that. That's actually a goblin word. Mlubs. No humans had set foot in the forest within recorded history. Southern tribesmen and, in later centuries, armored Neuburgers had shunned the inhospitable hills. A few years ago, however, a small band of trailblazers set out from the frontier town of Kleinkastel and disappeared into the forest. Months later, the two survivors returned with gold nuggets. Gold, that soft, malleable metal, useless for making weapons or tools or even lodestones, and yet, in a way, a magnet. Its matchless luster attracts not other metals, but human greed. That's a very good written bit there. Useless for making lodestones, and yet, in a way, a magnet. Its matchless luster attracts not other metals, but human greed. That is, I like that. I like that. Okay, within days, as if drawn by an invisible force, humanity began to invade the forest from north and south. Some came alone with just a pickaxe and shovel. Others came as families or in entire tribes. Some groups were as big as small armies. There were miners, and there were those who provisioned the miners. Those are usually the ones who make the most money from these kinds of rushes. And others who swindled them. There were robbers of all sorts, from desperate outlaws to clerks and lawyers. Funny. Finally, there were the Margrave's men, come to tax everyone else. Bridges were slung across raging cataracts, giant trees were felled, battalions of man-eating goblins were defeated and dispersed. Bands of outlaws roamed the hills, more deadly even than the forest creatures. In an effort to restore law and order and to generate income, the Margrave of Kleinkastel declared the whole forest to be part of his domain. Now his foot soldiers march across the hills, chasing bandits, selling mining licenses, and dealing summarily with unlicensed miners. To the miners, the Margrave soldiers are just one more irritation, like the goblins and the southern bandits that interfere with the serious business of digging for gold. The most successful miners are already wealthy enough to defy the Margrave. They employ teams of less fortunate migrants to work the richest seams located deep under the higher mountains, and they organize caravans to transport ore from the highland diggings through the forest to Kleinkastel, now a bustling boom town where equally wealthy merchants wait to weigh, assay, and buy their loads. One of the most successful mine owners is Gloten. Recently, he sent out invitations to selected warriors, including yourself, to come to Kleinkastel and work for him as caravan guards. At the time, you had better things to do than trudge back and forth through a hilly forest at the beck and call of a wealthy mine owner, and you declined the offer. Now, however, something is very wrong in the forest. Gloten has sent out messengers with another story. Miners, and sometimes entire families, have gone missing from their villages. Strange beasts, the like of which have never been seen before, are terrorizing the woodlands, and Gloten pleads for one of Kuhl's renowned warriors to come to Kleinkastel and investigate these mysterious occurrences. Nice use of semicolons there, by the way. Most writers have no idea what a semicolon is for. That is one of the ways you use it correctly. So you've got a colon there, and then you have several things, items that follow it, separated by semicolons. Lovely. He declares that he will pay the warrior's own weight in gold in return for restoring normality to the forest. You could refuse neither the appeal for help nor the lure of such a reward. Still astounded sometimes by how your main motivation in most of these fighting fantasy books is just gold. It is really, really simplistic, I think. It would have been nice if your motivation was something else, something far more important than gold. Of course, it would make it more complicated, and yeah. But then again, I think if you made your motivations different to gold, and you sort of subtly nudged the player into buying into his motivations, and also testing his adherence to those motivations through choices, I think that your experience of playing a game book might actually be a little bit more enriching as well. I mean, in a moral sense. Right. I wasn't meaning for that to be a wordplay, but enriching, yes. For you as a player, of course, as a reader, not for the character that you play. With the last 2 coins you possessed, you have bought a map of the area. It is reproduced on the inside front cover of this book. And you have a safely, so I suppose that means the map is actually here because you do need to refer to it. Usually when you have these maps at the inside cover of these books, it's not usually, strictly speaking, needed. I noticed in my previous playthrough it was useful to have the map because it told me on a few occasions whether I should go south or east, for instance. And you have it safely stowed in your backpack, along with what remains of your provisions. Too, after your long journey from Kelfa, you now have enough for only 2 more meals. You're wearing leather armor, your trusty sword hangs in its sheath at your belt, and you reach the forest without incident. However, thanks to a rainstorm and the flooding of a ford, you managed to miss the road at Linksneuburg and Festham to Kleinkastel, and found yourself in the depths of the woodland. Last night you slept rough in the undergrowth. This morning you came across a well-worn track leading southwest, which you hope will lead you out of the forest and towards Kleinkastel, where you expect to find Glorten and offer your services to him for the promised fee. With luck, you will reach a little town before dusk. So your first mission is to actually get to Kleinkastel. So it's a nice way to separate up the mission into chunks, I suppose. In the game book, is you start with getting to a location, then you have a location, and then you move on from there, and then you go to another location. So it's yeah. Now turn to paragraph 1. And there are dinosaurs in this one. it looks like. A line of blood spots crosses. I'll need to map this one, of course. A line of blood spots crosses the path. The blood is still warm and unclotted. Your hand goes to your sword hilt as you scan the surrounding forest. You can hear nothing, but it is clear that a wounded animal has crossed the path. A very large animal. To judge by the extent of broken branches and trampled undergrowth that show where the creature crashed into the forest. You follow the trail between the trees and into a clearing where you stop in amazement. The wounded animal is there, but it is not a bear or a wolf or any other woodland beast you have ever seen. It is like an enormous lizard, as big as an ox, with a sail-like frill running the length of its back and supported by spines. Its scaly hide shows several severe gashes. Stroking the monster's snout is an elf woman. As you enter the glade, the monster snarls, and the elf woman raises her sword, but then instead of attacking, they speak. Both of them say, "Help us. Please help us." Even as they speak, two soldiers come running into the clearing, swords drawn, and advance towards the wounded beast. Would you help to defend the monster, or would you stand aside and await the outcome of the confrontation? Right, that's actually already a kind of a moral decision, which is interesting because you don't always get those, especially when it comes to something described as a monster. So we got 229 or 375. Wait or help. I'm going to give the monster the benefit of the doubt and try to help it and the elf woman. 229. Since they're talking at the same time, it sounds like they're linked in some kind of way, which is interesting. One of the soldiers runs to attack the monster and the elf woman, while you intercept the other. He seems to be in no mood to talk and attempts to barge past you. You fight. Soldier, skill 5, stamina 8, so not exactly a high-class soldier, well, not very well trained. If you survive long enough to reduce his stamina by 3 points or less, he turns and runs away into the forest. Turn to 320. So I'm not going to roll that combat, as you know. I'm not going to go through my usual reasonings for it, but the main point is I'm playing this the way that I find the most enjoyable, which is how everyone should be playing their single-player games when they are beholden to no one else but themselves, and the only responsibility they have is to have a good time. So the monster and the elf woman have fought off the other soldier, whom you see limping away between the trees. The monster is very badly wounded. Why do I keep calling him the monster if he's, yeah, well, should be the creature, I suppose, or the animal or something like that. Anyway. The monster is very badly wounded and seems to be near death. It is not surprising that you have never seen anything like it before. It is a Spinosaurus, an animal that became extinct millions of years ago. Yeah, well, yeah, I wouldn't have actually trusted the level of paleontology knowledge in a fighting fantasy world to even have the notion of millions of years. To know they wouldn't have carbon dating, for crying out loud. You have dragons, you have basilisks. This is not a weird monster or creature to encounter in a fantasy setting at all. You would just think this is just one of those you haven't seen before. Yeah. Okay, that is a bit daft. I'm actually a little bit miffed now with this is a serious sort of breach of world building right there, and a serious anachronism. You ask the elf woman where it came from, but it is the Spinosaurus itself that replies. I can speak for myself, warrior, it says. I was once an elf. See? Although I myself find it hard to believe. My entire hunting party was captured by a horde of cursed slave warriors. They took us underground and put us one by one through the dread portal. All my comrades were overcome, their willpower broken, and they became mindless slaves of the portal, or of whoever controls it. I resisted. I would not let my mind be wiped clean. I lost consciousness, and when I awoke, I was as you see me. There are others like me. Many have gone mad. This foul body I inhabit is, I believe, of a sort that is common on the other side of the portal, but only the portal's slaves may go there. Well, even the monster doesn't like his own self, so foul body. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, if you tell that to a Spinosaurus, that might hurt their feelings. Okay. Just because something is different doesn't make it a monster. No one knows the extent of this evil except perhaps Gartax. But you must be gone. The forest is a deadly place now. Will you hurriedly rejoin the path and continue towards Kleinkastel, or will you try to find out more about Gartax? Now, that's a very, very easy choice. Obviously, you have to find out more about Gartax. So we have 74 Gartax and 143 Klein Castel, which means small castle, I suppose. Gartax 74, right? 74. You have many questions that you would like to ask. What are the slave warriors? Where is this evil portal? But it is clear that the elf, imprisoned in the body of the badly wounded Spinosaurus, is almost exhausted. Gasping for breath, it manages to continue. The Margrave in Kleinkastel, the mine owners, the king of the goblins, even the wood elves. None of them know how bad things are here. Gartax was a miner. He had the sense to get people out of his village before the slave warriors arrived. Now he and his followers live in the forest, trying to organize some kind of resistance. He's camped not far from here, half a league to the southeast. He can explain what's going on. Now I must rest. Thank you for your help, warrior. You return to the path. Will you now continue along it southwestwards towards Kleinkastel, turn to 143, or will you strike out eastwards, straight into the wild and wooded foothills of the Cloud-High Mountains? Or will you enter the forest in the southeasterly direction, hoping to find Gartax? Now, this could be a completely wild goose chase, of course, a complete red herring, but I'm quite tempted to try to find this Gartax. So that is 263. 263. Okay, so that is 22, and that is east. And this is south east. So I'm gonna go look for Gartax. You hack away up overgrown slopes, slide down treacherous banks, and splash across tree-shadowed streams. You join a narrow path which soon leads you to a clearing, in the center of which a solitary tree spreads its shade. You step into the clearing, uncomfortably aware that the surrounding forest is unnaturally quiet. As you reach the central tree, you hear the rustle of branches from the far side of the glade, and you see a man run into the open, closely pursued by a creature from a nightmare. It is Phororachus, a vicious, flightless bird, much taller than a human, with a huge curved beak and glittering eyes surmounted by a crest of feathers. The man looks frail and tired. He is limping and is armed with only a small knife. With an ululating cry, the cruel bird chases him relentlessly as he tries to back away. If you want to come to the man's rescue, turn to 176. If you would rather avoid getting involved and return to the cover of the forest, turn to 101. Again, using a name for a beast that is something that is an existing one from many millions of years ago, I suppose that is, I don't know, it still feels a bit somehow. But there we go. I think dinosaurs, I think they fit better into science fiction settings for some reason rather than fantasy settings. And even there it's a bit somehow. Right. So rescue 17176 or not get involved 101. So again, I'm going to get involved because, yeah. So rescue. Drawing your sword, you run across the glade and step between the giant bird and the exhausted man. You stare into the beast's cold eyes and raise your sword to strike. But then you feel a knife point against your spine. Behind you, the man chuckles. Our little ruse worked, I grit. This warrior shows true nobility in intervening to protect the weak and helpless. I think I acted the victim's part very convincingly. Now, warrior, put up your sword. Surrender! Will you sheathe your sword and surrender, or will you swing around and attack the man? Oh dear, so if I swing around and attack the man, of course the Forarakas will stab me in the back. Right. Well, it's not like I have any gold to steal. So in this case, this was definitely a red herring. Right. So in this case, it is 2 options. I think if I turn around, I will die. So I think I'll just have to surrender. 292. Surrender. Oh, 204. Right. 292 it is. You have made a wise choice, my friend, says the man, as about a dozen roughly dressed men and women armed with axes and staves converge on you from all sides of the clearing. Now then, why are you here in the forest? You describe your incredible meeting with a talking Spinosaurus and explain that you are looking for Gartax. The man is not impressed. Gartax? He's no more than a brigand, from what I've heard, and the rabble that follow him are worse. You haven't answered my question. You're a trained fighter. What are you doing in this part of the world? If you reply that you are on your way to Kleincastle in response to Gloaton's appeal for help in investigating the mysterious occurrences in the forest, turn to 90. If you say that you're a freebooting adventurer who just happened to be in the area, turn to 216. Now, it's a bit risky to say that I am here on Gloaton's behest, because he might think that killing me now means one less person who is going to come after brigands like himself. He is a brigand. I mean, he's calling Gartix a brigand, but he is a brigand himself. A bandit. So maybe in this case I should be lying. Yeah. Maybe that is safer. There are many occasions in fighting fantasy books where you are asked a question and you get the option of lying or telling the truth, and very often telling the truth is the correct option. In this case, I'm sizing up the person I'm talking to. I think it's I'm a little bit more unsure about that. Seeing as he tricked me, he definitely doesn't deserve my honesty. So, Gloaton or I'll just put lie, actually. So 216. He might see through it. He might see way through it right away. So let's see. The man turns his back on you with a shrug and addresses his followers. You men there, bring some ropes. Bind this prisoner. It's time we return to camp. We'll take the prisoner with us, and we'll find out what this warrior's really doing here. So he doesn't believe me for a moment. And so a little while later, you start a southward march. Your hands are tied together and your arms are pressed against your body by coils of heavy rope. A sack over your head makes it hard to see where you're going. Well, I would have thought so. Impossible even. A rope connects you. How do you even know you're going south? Well, you might be able to see the sunlight through the sack. A rope connects you to the belt of one of your captors, and you are pulled along at the end of the line of marchers. You are dragged deeper and deeper into the forest. You think you may be able to loosen your bonds by continually flexing and relaxing your muscles. If you decide to try this, turn to 119. If you'd rather not, turn to 333. Now, I'm not sure if trying to escape when they might just as easily kill you is the best idea, but of course, there might be a good opportunity later. I'm going to try that. 333, loosen. So I'm gonna 119. Let's try that. As you stumble through the forest, you concentrate on expanding your muscles, hoping to loosen the ropes that bind your hands and arms. The effort is very tiring, and you begin to trip over tree roots and blunder into bushes. Deduct 1 point from your stamina. Success depends on your determination and the strength in your arms. Add together your skill and stamina. Roll 1 dice 7 times and add together the scores. Compare the totals. So if you say you had normal stamina like 20, normal skill like 10, that's 30, and you roll 7 times. So that's an average of 4, would actually get you, make you succeed. So that means they're actually quite likely to succeed in that case. So certainly better than half. So you succeed in shrugging off your bonds. You choose a moment when your captors are distracted by noise in the woods to slip away unnoticed. You still have your sword in your backpack. Probably still have your sword. You wander aimlessly through the forest until you are sure that there is no pursuit. Turn to 2. Okay, so it might have been more interesting to remain a captive. If you total of the die rolls, you are unable to free yourself. So that is the one we. Oh, hang on. I'm actually writing these in the wrong place. Wrong place. So 2. Right. But now I'm lost. You find a broad-limbed tree that looks easy to climb, and you clamber up to the highest boughs in order to establish your whereabouts in the forest. If you want to eat a meal and regain lost stamina, you can do so here, perched on a branch. Remember to note the changes on your adventure sheet. From your vantage point, you survey the landscape. Now you have to decide in which direction to travel. To the west, the forest thins, and you can see a wide track leading towards Castle. If you want to go to the town next, turn to 143. So that is back to the 143 option we had earlier. To the south, the forest stretched into the distance like an endless green carpet. If you want to head south, turn to 155. So we have 155 south. To the east, the vegetation rises up the foothills of the cloud-high mountains, and in the distance, the peaks form a jagged, bleak horizon. Beneath the mountains are the mine workings. If you want to take this direction, turn to 22. And we did have 22 earlier as well. So I'm going to move that down here. So that's 22. So the only new direction now is 155, and that is probably the one that's closest to where I want to. If I want to get to this Gartax sky, but I mean it might be a complete waste of my time, but we'll keep going. You set off southwards, trying not to deviate from your chosen course. The forest seems empty of living things, and your progress is impeded only by the woodland itself. You have to cut your way through brambles, scramble up and down ridges, and wade across rushing streams. Finally, you come to a stream that you cannot cross on foot. You will have to follow its course until you come to a fording place. Will you walk upstream in a northeasterly direction, or do you prefer to go downstream towards the southwest? Pretty much random, I suppose, arbitrary, which one I pick. 326 or 57, so that is southwest or northeast. I'm generally going south though, so I'll go southwest, I think. The stream runs along the bottom of a valley, and as you follow its course, the sides of the valley grow steeper and higher until you find yourself in a deep gorge. The cliffs that rise vertically from both banks of the swiftly flowing brook block out most of the daylight. If it's a brook, then surely you would be able to cross it. Right? Yes. You are on the west bank, where a narrow path runs alongside the watercourse. At the next bend in the river, your path is squeezed between the cliff and the water, and at that point there is a large cave in the cliff face. You cannot cross the stream here, so you must either continue along the path, past the cave mouth, or attempt to climb out of the ravine. Sort of a choke point where you have to get really close to a cave. That sounds like a very good place for an ambush by some creature that just snatches you and eats you. Right. So I am going to write my two options here. So it's 2, 4, 6 or 3, 6, 5. So climb or cave. I'm going to climb. I don't dare walk past the cave. There are fissures in the face of the cliff that serve as hand and footholds, but the cliff is both high and steep, and the climb will tax your strength and staying power. Add together your skill and stamina. Again, roll 1 die 6 times, which is less than last time. If the total of the die rolls is equal to or less than your skill, etc., etc., and of course we do pass that one. Turn to 196. Otherwise, turn to 288. Okay, 196. Just as you feel that your aching muscles cannot bear your weight any longer, your fingers touch grass instead of rock. You have reached the top of the cliff. You lever your body upwards and collapse in a patch of greensward, a natural clearing in the forest that elsewhere grows to the cliff's edge. A path crosses the clearing. You hear movement in the undergrowth, but you cannot conceal yourself. You keep very still. A goblin, frail and limping, lurches out of the forest, and along the path, only a few paces behind him, is the biggest giant spider you have ever seen, clicking its mandibles and rattling its 8 furry legs. On this clear terrain, the spider will catch up with the goblin within seconds. If you keep still, the spider will pounce on the goblin, bite him and fold him in sticky strands of web and drag him into the forest. I mean, I don't know that, that's just an assumption. You can then continue your journey downstream along the clifftop path. If you want to do this, turn to 399. If you would rather draw your sword and attack the spider, turn to 67. That's a really weird way of wording your choices. If the spider is going to catch him, it's going to do this, it's going to do that, going to eat him, going to have him for lunch, going to have some tea alongside it, which I don't have today, by the way. And if you want to do that, then you can walk this way. But if you want to attack the spider, do this. You know what? I'm going to attack the spider and go to 67. 67, and otherwise 399. Spider. You run between the spider and the goblin, who falls to the ground, gasping for breath. The spider stops and swivels to face you. It jerks its claw-tipped front legs in the air. Its mandibles open and close, making sounds that are distressingly like human speech. Its body is as big as an ox, and its crooked legs tower above you. It attacks. Giant spider. Skill stamp 7, stamina 7. Not as bad as it sounds, or it looks on paper. If you win, turn to 220. Now, I know they're trying to keep the balance in these things, but very often the monsters that seem so giant and monstrous and unbeatable are not very powerful at all. But it's one of the problems, isn't it? If you want to have... I mean, your hero needs to be heroic. He needs to be a little bit superhuman, probably, and abilities in order for that to work. But if you want to save the world, that is what you need, I guess. You pull your you pull your sword blade out of the bulbous carcass of the giant spider and move out of reach of its still twitching limbs. You turn to look at the goblin. He is in a pitiable state. He is old and lame, and his once fine clothes are in tatters. Blood from a multitude of slight wounds trickles down his face, arms, and legs. You are surprised to see that he carries no weapon. He seems too exhausted to move. Would you stay with the goblin until he recovers a little and offer him some provisions? If so, turn to 136. If you have no provisions to offer, or if you decide that you should continue your journey without delay, you leave the goblin and continue heading downstream along the cliff-top path. Now, there's no point leaving him there because, well, in for a penny, in for a pound, I've helped him. I really should see what he is about. I already sort of made that decision when I decided to step in and attack the spider. So, 136. The old goblin knows quite a few words of your language, and when he has rested for a while, he thanks you endlessly for saving his life. To keep him quiet, you give him a meal from your provisions. I thought it would be to help him get better and feel better, to keep him quiet. You give him a meal from your provisions, which he devours ravenously. As he finishes, you ask him why he is out alone and unarmed in the forest. Important diplomatic mission, he says. Can't do it now. Too weak. You know, the wizard of the lake. That's why no weapon. Wizard won't have weapons on his island. Go to take a letter from him, from my master, the king of the forest goblins. Need the wizard's help to fight slave warriors. All our people disappearing, coming back like zombies. Attacking everyone. Need help. Humans too. But I can't finish this journey. Will you deliver letter? The goblin pulls an inscribed sheet of hide from inside his jerkin. It doesn't smell very pleasant, but it appears to be an official document. If you agree to take it, note down the fact on your adventure sheet. You then continue your journey downstream along the clifftop path. Turn to 399. Well, that's interesting, I suppose. So I've got 136. Oops. Am I running out of pencil in this thing? Well, I am running out of... I need to top that up. Let's see. 136. Goblins. Letter. Okay. And then 399. Did you say anything about where the this wizard was? In the lake, it said. The wizard of the lake. And so it's an island on the lake. So this must be... There's only one lake. That's Lake Mulubs. So... and I'm along one of the rivers, so yeah, I should try to get to Lake Blubs, I guess. Right. The pathway continues with a slight downhill slope, taking you through stretches of dense forest and grassy clearings. You are able to catch glimpses of the stream below. You notice that as you progress, the cliffs become less steep and the ravine less deep. Finally, the cliffs peter out and your path joins the one that runs along the bank of the stream. Turn to 15. So, okay, so we have, oops, on the wrong. 15. The stream has now become a wide river, curving through flat forest land of ancient green trunks that rise majestically as far as the eye can see out of dense brambly undergrowth. Your path clings to the western bank of the river, and eventually you find some evidence of habitation. An old wooden jetty juts out across the shallows. Moored to it are two boats, a flat-bottomed punt with a long pole and a skiff with oars. A track leads from the jetty into the woods, where you see a hut. It occurs to you that boating downstream would be quicker and easier than walking. Would you take a boat, or would you go to the hut and knock on the door? Well, I don't want to just steal the boat. Seems a bit somehow. So 166 boat or 275 hut. The door opens before you have time to knock on it. Before you have time to knock on it twice, I should say. From the darkness inside the hut, 4 eyes gleam at you. 2 of them belong to a grim-looking dwarf. The other 2, even more belligerent, are those of a white parrot-like bird sitting on the dwarf's shoulder, its long tail feathers curled round his neck. The dwarf is holding a long-pulled boat hook. Sorry. Yeah, it disappeared in the spine there. Boat hook, which he pushes up to your throat. I'm the boatman, he says. What are you after? You ask for passage down river. You say that you will pay in coin or in hard work. The dwarf is not interested. What's the use of money? There's nothing to buy anymore, and I don't want to take off down that river. Now, if you got some grub, why, I'd sell you one of my boats for a decent meal. We haven't eaten in days, have we, Paul? If you want to give him some of your provisions in return for a boat, turn to 323. It seems that provisions is the currency here, and I've already sort of used up. This is my second and last provision. If you want to give him some of your provisions in return for a boat, turn to 323. And I think I'll do that. 323. Provisions. If not, the dwarf stands guard over his boat as you continue your journey along the riverside path. Turn to 79. So this might be a shortcut. It might be the best path. It might be that... actually, I think I should... No, I'll just leave it like that. I was just thinking if I... Because these branches are going to split now, so I've got 2. That means I'll have at least 2 splits going across the page, but that's okay. So yeah, I'm going to give him a provision and 323, see if we can come to some kind of arrangement. Make him an offer he can't refuse and all that nonsense. You open your backpack and give the dwarf enough food for a good meal. Deduct 1 provision from your adventure sheet. The dwarf begins to push chunks of dry bread into his mouth with machine-like speed and regularity. When he slows down, he remembers to crumble some of the food for his pet bird. Between mouthfuls, he manages spurts of conversation. Been here since the early days of the gold diggings. Never known it so quiet. Time was we had nothing to worry about but the goblins and a few raiders from down south. Now there's beasts in the woods bigger than I've ever seen, and things that come up to the door of the night and talk with human voices, but they're not human. And then mad fighters with shriveled up faces and staring eyes. I keep myself locked in here, but if you want to go off down the river, that's your lookout. Take whichever boat you like and watch out for the rapids. A skiff will break up for sure on the rocks, and you'll be lucky to get over in one piece even in the punt. You thank him for the advice and go to untie a boat. It seems like he sort of kept moving more and more into the West Country there. You thank him for the advice and go to untie a boat. Make a note of which one you take. Turn to 227. So, what did he say? He said, whichever boat you like. The skiff will break up on the rocks and the rapids. Unlucky to get over in one piece, even in the punt. So it sounds like the punt is the best boat for the job. So 227, and that's new page. Oh, I should put my... This is Fighting Fantasy book number... It's another of those. It doesn't say, is it? It's a 36 or 37. I can't remember. I'll put that after I've double checked that. There we are. Did I not look that up recently? So Portal of Evil is 37, yes. So this is FF37. And we have FF37, page number 2. And we're starting with 227. And I've taken a punt at the punt. Right, 227. You push off from the bank and sit down in the swaying boat. When you reach the center of the stream, you find that the cross-current cease and the flowing waters take you gently in a southwesterly direction. You relax and enjoy the trip as the river gradually veers to the south and you drift peacefully past the vast slumbering forest that crowd the banks. It's not part of the story, is it? Does your character know how to swim? You hear splashing, and looking ahead, you see a commotion in the water near the left bank, where the surface is otherwise calm. Will you maneuver the boat eastwards towards the left-hand bank to get closer to the disturbance, or will you let the boat continue to drift with the current in the middle of the river? And I'm not sure I want to get into a disturbance with my boat. I think I'll just drift past. Thank you very much. Okay. 25, middle, 139. Disturbance. 25, middle of the river. The river is now broad and slow moving, and it is taking you in a southerly direction. As you drift along, you have time to eat a meal from your provisions if you want to, and to gaze at the scenery. Both banks are still thickly forested, but the undergrowth appears to be less dense and to consist mainly of vines and creepers. If anything, the trees are even more massive than those in the forest further north, with wide, glossy leaves. You think that open glades in the forest are becoming more frequent as you travel further south. Eventually, you notice that the flow of the river has become faster. At the same time, you see the first signs of humanoid life since you took the boat. There are wooden jetties ahead, one on each bank. You can now maneuver your boat to one side or rather of the river to reach one of the jetties, or you can stay in midstream. Right, so this is interesting because obviously I haven't come to any rapids. There might be something interesting in any of these places. Going to any of these places might make me lose my boat. You never know. I'll just write down my options anyway, regardless of what my choice ends up being. So we got 382 west, 104 center, or 152 east. Originally I was trying to get across this river, but that's a long time ago now. I'm going to pick the east bank, and just because I'm curious now, I don't want to pass too many potential side quests. They add so much flavor and interest, and sometimes colorful deaths as well. Your little boat is swept along by the current and buffeted by sudden eddies. You cling to your seat. To your right, the forested bank continues as usual, but as you career past the left bank, you see that it rises steeply. Hang on, was this the right? No, that was the center. I was 152. I was supposed to go. Sorry, that didn't sound like going into a jetty, did it? The boat bumps against the timbers, so it shivers the timbers, I suppose, of the jetty, and you cast a loop of rope over a bollard as you clamber onto the planking. Two paths lead from the jetty. One follows a riverbank downstream, and the other leads to a small house made of timber and stone. There is a lingering smell of smoke. Some of the window frames of the house are blackened as if by fire. Then you notice the bodies. Some are ragged, skeletal humanoids. Others are gaudily dressed goblins. A battle has been fought here. As you watch, the surviving victors come rampaging through the door of the house. There are 3 goblins shouting and cheering and waving their short swords. They have draped themselves with loot from the house, brocades and furs, jewelry and ornaments. That sounds like a lot of riches to have in just a small little house with a jetty, doesn't it? You would have, I mean, in real life, that's the kind of stuff you would have buried next to your house. You would not have kept that in the house. With them, bridled, muzzled, and on a leash, is a ferocious-looking creature. standing on its hind legs. It is taller than goblins, and its flailing tail, horned snout, and clawed limbs combine to make the Oviraptor a vision of menace. So again, using an extant Earth dinosaur. Yeah. The goblins see you and start, except of course the Oviraptor would have had feathers. It would have been completely covered in feathers in real life. But of course, I didn't know that back in the 80s. The goblins see you and start to free the beast's muzzle. Will you advance towards the house, wait on the jetty, jump back into the boat, cast off, and allow the current to take you downstream? You know what? I don't know. They don't look friendly. I'm not really interested in the loot. I'm gonna just try to get back into the stream. Even though when I started reading that passage before, it sounds like it's going to be a little bit touch and go with rapids, but that will be interesting enough. 387 and 308. Wait. House or stream. So I'm going to go back into the stream of 104. Your little boat is swept along by the current and buffeted by sudden eddies. You cling to your seat. To your right, the forested bank continues as usual, but as you career past the left bank, you see that it rises steeply with sheer cliffs topped with a treeless crag. So that sounds like it got really rapids, typical kind of rapids coming on. Abruptly, you are past the boulder-strewn base of the cliff, and you find that your river is joining with another, even wider and faster, that floods in from an easterly direction. Together, the water of the two rivers continues southwards in a torrent. Your boat is tossed about like a cork, and then you reach the rapids. The river cascades over half-submerged rocks. You can do nothing but hope that you will reach calmer waters quickly before the boat smashes against one of the granite boulders. If your boat is a skiff, turn to 178. If it is a punt, turn to 214. So I went with the punt. Let's put that up here. So it is 214. Punt or 178. Skiff. 214. Again and again the punt jars as its flat bottom scrapes across the rocks, but somehow its timbers hold together. Well, it's made of timbers, and it's only carrying one passenger. It would really actually take a lot to crush it, because it's quite a small, light little vessel. It will get stuck on a rock, but it wouldn't get crushed by a rock. It's a bit worse if you're in sort of a canvas canoe or something. Somehow its timbers hold together as the foaming river bumps you down the stony stairway. You are thrown from side to side and drenched in ice-cold water. However, you manage to hang on. As the punt enters deeper water, it begins to leak and break up, but before it sinks, it comes to ground on the bank of the river. You stagger out of the wreckage and collapse, battered and exhausted. Turn to 86. For untold hours, you lie senseless, half covered by ice-cold river water and exposed to the burning sun. Deduct 4 points from your stamina. If you are still alive, you eventually regain consciousness. You are lying face down in mud. Every muscle in your body aches as if you are being tortured on the rack. Your head pounds. You drag yourself out of the water onto firmer ground. Amazingly, you still have your sword and your backpack, although the contents of the pack have been lost. Delete all provisions, equipment, and gold pieces from your adventure sheet. You are on the west bank of the river. It is daylight, but you cannot guess how long you have been here. So this indicates to me this is the wrong choice in a way, at least partly because that means I no longer have the map. Well, oh, not the map, the message. Oh, actually, I wouldn't have put the message in the backpack. You put the message under your clothes because that's where you keep messages. I might actually still claim to have that if I get to a point where I need that. But clearly you're not meant to actually, therefore, to go down the rapids is therefore the wrong choice. So maybe going to the west bank might be the right choice. Maybe you would get past the east bank shenanigans without any problems as well. But it does sound like you're not meant to go down the rapids at all. A skiff, you would drown, and in the punt you survive, but you lose everything you have apart from your sword. Right. You are on the west bank of the river. It is daylight, but you cannot guess how long you have been here. Hours, days? You rest until you feel able to move. Then you head south through the forest, turn to 36. And this is probably a good place to take a break. As you know, I am trying to make these videos a little bit shorter now. So this is where I will continue next time and see if this is, I'm guessing this is a complete dead-end path, completely wrong. I don't really have a sense that I'm on the right path yet. I mean, there are a few things that can be interesting. I was supposed to look for this Gartax guy. Now I have a message to deliver, which might actually be helpful, or meeting the wizard might be helpful. I don't know. So I'll find out next time, I guess. I'm just going to go back to this view now. So yeah, so that's the story so far, and I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. Always nice playing a new book, although I think I don't know, I'm a bit sort of in two minds about the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs would actually have been more okay if the character didn't know what they were called and that they were millions of years old and that they shouldn't be there. It's a fantasy world. There are humans, there are humanoids, and there are monsters. Yeah, that's it. That's how it works. Anyway, or maybe this is your character is the person who invented carbon dating. Who knows? But that would have been part of the story. He wouldn't have been somebody who ran around with a sword trying to make money for his retirement fund. Anyway, I'll see you next time when I continue playing Portal of Evil. I don't know when that will be. Lots of things going on these days, but when I have the time. So I've managed to squeeze this one in today, and hopefully I'll squeeze another one in the not too distant future. So yeah, I'll see you then. Goodbye for now. Bye bye.